Good morning.
Morning.
Sanje,
Chana soke chana ma, chanchu palo dani gapsuchi, dani shingengi petokangi, chola panchi sangi chupasho. Chana soke chana ma, chanchu palo dani gapsuchi, dani shingengi petokangi, chola panchi sangi chupasho. Chana soke chana ma, chanchu palo dani gapsuchi, dani shingengi petokangi, chola panchi sangi chupasho.
Tayata,
Gate para samgate bodhi soha.
Tayata,
Gate para samgate bodhi soha.
Tayata,
Gate para samgate bodhi
Soha, Omuni Muni Mahamuni Soha, Omuni Muni Mahamuni, Omuni Muni Mahamuni Soha. 심지어 탐제가도 토달라나 마셔봐 산제에 고마를 뭐 진짜 토바자 대체는 장주스 발라잖아 취지는 나와래 심벌을 튀고 토와 퇴제쇼 만로 가지고 난 가서 보고 장을 한번 좀 가봐서 집을 남을 집을 사제가 되는 난 제시티미니 인사는체.
So we begin as we normally do by setting our motivation to attain the peerless state of enlightenment and to motivate to do our very best to be able to attain that state based on gaining full understanding of what those trainings are and gaining that training, that understanding based on an unmistaken text, an unmistaken presentation. And so with this in mind, we are here this morning to hear some explanation on the outlines of the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment as composed by the great Lam Rim Outline. Dunga di samba di sherap ki rapchela som. So di samba la lep.
Ola shera la jela somta, donda topa ta kunzo topa, simje donjo la sherapche. Ta tabun donda topa shera tami bete khona ni ke donji khona chewa ta ngosum to chewa khona. Ngosum to kywa khona chewa osse ta. Ta ni ba kunzo tirwe. Tu marwa, ni ba kunzo ne rikwe nenga la chewa ko.
Somebody.
Rikwe nenga la. Nangala kebe shera bocha subata semje go de jawa to be shera ne semje na de ta chime de kana ma to me go tube chu sheba bocha.
And so continuing on from last week when we had been looking at a third outline on the three divisions of wisdom, that being the wisdom which knows the ultimate, wisdom which knows the conventional, and the wisdom which works for the purpose or the benefit of sentient beings. And the first of these, I had a sort of a brief definition, if you will, is that the wisdom which knows the ultimate is that which cognizes the reality of selflessness by means of a conceptual understanding or a meaning generality. And and also it is that which knows its object directly. And the second, the wisdom which knows conventional reality, it refers to the wisdom which understands and has become expert in the 5 types of knowledge. And the third of these, the wisdom which works for the benefit of sentient beings, is that wisdom which establishes and accomplishes in a faultless way the benefit for all sentient beings in both this life and future lives.
ane doba teta tuba sungwe chungurwa ya rashin khana mato wasta doba khelle na mane na pena sorche na zuma na kuma jana loyim jana doba khelle na male na nyeba yungurwa ta jebe khana mato wasta ta doba khelle be onki ane khelle ba yina ta pheyu padu me ba yungurwa ya khelle na masung ba yina ane ya nyeba topche bo yungurwa ta kosa da jebe khana mato wasta girwa 가제 라제 하나마다 제배 하나마다 두배 주 다디 그리스도 고메 되는 습제를 페바 두배 좀 그러다 와 시베도네 라게 수시도 두 현에 대체 좀 그러
And so that term of blamelessly accomplishing or faultlessly accomplishing is a very specific term that refers to faults that are incurred in two specific categories. One, and those that occur through the breaking or the damaging of one's vows that one has taken. So they are vows that have been taken to commit to a certain course of action, and if one fails to keep those vows, then there is a serious fault incurred due to that, just as when one keeps those vows, there is the extra benefit to be accrued similarly. So that's the one category. The other category is naturally occurring faults. So these are behaviors and actions that are seen to be negative just by their very nature, such as, for example, killing or stealing, sexual misconduct, and so on. And in that definition of working for the benefit of sentient beings, referred to the benefit of all sentient beings, both in this life and in future life. So what it's referring to is both developing a temporary happiness and ultimate stable happiness for all others, and that in so doing, that's concentrating on bringing a benefit for others. So the fourth main outline was how then to actually practice wisdom. And so it's then in the context of practicing or generating this wisdom, it is done in conjunction with the six supremacies and in connection with the six perfections. And it's explained how when one is abiding in wisdom and the degree to which one is able to lead others towards that wisdom or in that wisdom is referred to as the generosity of wisdom. And the rest is explained as explained previously. Again, it's just referring back to the notion of how all of the six perfections are included in each of the six perfections. So there is the generosity of ethics, etc. And this applies here in relation to wisdom also. So the generosity of wisdom and so on, the ethics of wisdom, etc. So the fifth and the final outline in relation to this perfection is a summary. And here it states that though one may have a direct, the wisdom of a direct realization of emptiness, but if that is not also accompanied by the mind of enlightenment, and then one's subsequent actions will not be bodhicitta actions, or actions that will lead to enlightenment. And so this must be emphasized, that the basis is our generation of the mind of enlightenment, and the objective is to constantly increase the strength and the breadth of that mind, and to aspire to the wisdom of higher levels, and to train in those methods.
자주가 샘게 심바지 매바이나 돈인 것은 또 배셔라 요바이나 아니 셔라 가서 다가자 파지 두게 나게 남네도 책임도 앞에는 집바대 다가라 해 집바 수준 다가자 저거 수여바다 집바 수준 수여바다 가자 가서 되다 준주다 단 등에서 가서 셔라도 등에서 그거 다 파지 두 가지 집바이나야 되게 파지 차에티 차제데 자주가 샘다 돈이 또 배셔라 니가 심바라 때는 아니 버려 파지 두는 남의 창구여와 디만이 차고요마 다진사 딱까지 자주 돈이 도 배셔는 개쳐 버릴라 안 되다 소도 저 자주 쓰면 개쳐 버쳐 다 자주 쓰면 개쳐 버려야 돼 돈이 도 배셔라 개쳐 버쳐 다진이 네가 개쳐 버 자기도 같아서 먼저 가서라 다까지 저 로다 다 부구지 용하라 파다 많이가 개쳐 버쳐도 와 다진이 싫어하다
So here it's really saying that though one may have the mind of enlightenment, have generated the mind of enlightenment, but without the wisdom, if one has not generated the mind of enlightenment, then our actions based on the six perfections are incomplete, unqualified, and so for example, that what makes generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiastic effort, etc., perfections, is the combination of motivation, in one's motivation, of both the mind of enlightenment and wisdom element, both. And so that must be understood. And that's so that with the mind of enlightenment alone, without wisdom, these actions don't constitute perfection actions. And without the wisdom, wisdom, but without the mind of enlightenment, and likewise they don't become perfection actions. And so it's the kind of unification, or the combination of both wisdom and the bodhicitta element, or mind of enlightenment element, that renders these actions as perfection actions, or perfection practices.
다지 말이 바로 누구도 와 이네 랑첸zel라 지금 숙제부 마결에 피게다 랑첸zel 매워서도 못도 와 다 다가네 신게 자주가 샘되게 야 지금 가서도 너무게 용하다 된 거데 야 너무 짜와는 매봐도 차도 못도 와 너무 짜와는 매봐 차네 뒤녀부 담에 또 be시라고 거다 그런 게야 지금 소스의 개주입니다 와 도와 다 니가 그거 랑첸즈 매버서 그거 요래 다지 머리가 매버서다 니가 매버 마소나 아니 가서데 연대 탐제될 때마다 경찰 용수 잡아서 차도 오면 도와
Another way of looking at this is that the main objective of our wisdom is to act as the antidote to self-cherishing or self-grasping, the self-grasping entity. And the main objective of the mind of enlightenment is to counteract our self-cherishing aspect. And so you can see, on the one hand, if we have only wisdom in our minds, then we're not dealing with the self-cherishing aspect, if we have only the mind of enlightenment and emphasizing that aspect, and then we are not dealing with the root of the mental afflictions, namely the wisdom, which is the antidote to self-grasping. And so therefore it's seen to be is so essential to combine both the minds of enlightenment and the wisdom in order to deal with both of these particular elements. And so this is in order to be able to ultimately accumulate all good qualities and to eradicate all faults.
다다 간제데 가서데 티 가서데 다다 파진 두고나는 다 시랍데 도두지 다 가서데 저 가서데 삽제 시작전에 도두지 참았지 엔지단에 다데 디 제일 영어서 딜리그리 가서래 다다데
타마니기
다 디니 개체 뭐 이바 인사 아니 저게 땡에서 시랍니 다 가다 한동 값을 내고로 와 한동 값을 내고로 야 삽제로 돈에 받듯이 자주 어떻게 어떻게
And so at this point, the text will leave the explanation on the 6 perfections. And but this is going to be, it will come up again quite soon because of the outline which says there will be a further, more detailed explanation of the final 2 perfections, and that is meditative concentration and wisdom, because of their great importance.
다 니와 가서 신규 다 가서 라디오 멤버지와 파지도다 신규 멤버지와 도용고 시스로다 와다 라디오 멤버지와 다 신규 멤버지와 왔다 다 니와 신규 멤버지와 다 도와 시 그래서 도와 시라서 맞아 뒤시 뭐지 시샤베 좀 센세 뒤시 제레제 가서다
And so now we come to another main outline, and we need to kind of like hark back to quite a while ago when we came on 2 main outlines, really, which dealt with this part of the text. The first was the instructions for ripening one's own continuum, especially in the context of the 6 perfections. And that's what we have just finished. And now we're coming to the second of those main outlines, which is the instructions for ripening the mind streams of others, which focuses on the gathering of disciples. And this has 5 main outlines. The first of these is the nature of what's referred to as a gathering of disciples. Why, secondly, why, or the reason why they are stipulated as 4. Thirdly, the functions of each of those 4 ways. Number 4 is the need for those who gather a following to rely on these 4 ways. And the 5th is a slightly more extensive explanation of each of them. And so one of the main focuses of these ways of accumulating disciples is on connection. And so how important it is, because we can recognize without good connection it's difficult to bring benefit to others. So, but with that good connection, and here it concentrates on creating that through initially the giving of material goods and gifts and so on, that creates a harmonious, friendly atmosphere, and from that then one can dispense benefit towards those those people.
Sure.
And this is followed then, so that's the first, giving of material goods, or just generosity in fact. And the second is pleasant speech, and the third is known as working at the aims, and the fourth is the consistency of behavior.
다 간제 다다디 가서래 지금 진시에 맞아 남지 지나 총바주가 먹고 지기도 앞에나 쏟아다데 되게 당고 밑에와제 녀바데 다 지, 캡다지 직대제 디펜도요 지기도 왔다지 이제 다 건지 다 소소 무소에 제대로 와 다다데 파줘라 편바 좀 해치도 랑김세도 말이 시야라 편바 좀 해치도 아니 편바 주와라 편바 좀 사기 줍투바 쏘고요 와 줍투바 쏘고도 아니 들라 지 가서래 지금 가서다 내가 거에 타오들 집에 제 중국으로 왔다 뭐 중국으로 왔대.
And so we can see this the kind of psychology behind generosity as being the first of these four ways of gathering disciples as being very valid, and we can see this at play in a kind of an almost intensive way through advertising, through economics, businesses. Buy one, get one free. We're giving discounts. We're giving you free. We're giving you something free. But of course, their whole aim, their whole motivation is profit and money. And so, but the kind of like the technique is similar in a way. However, from this point of view, the generosity is motivated solely in order to benefit others. That must be constantly in mind. And that one may be able to provide the temporary needs of another, but the objective is to be able to benefit them ultimately.
내가 그 동에 가지 내가 잡아서 타도 그 동에 탐자 세와 지리 인성적이 다들 편배 상도다네 아니 그 디제발은 저와야 볼 수고도 다 디체도 있었고 편배 납치하고 편배 아까 저번에 강에도 잡고 야보도 시작했대 얘는 딜레 납치하다 답에 땡기 다 그런 뭔가 탐자 세네 다 땡기 디기 주변에 아니 편배 죽고도 삼사 디체도 디제발은 그 납치하고
And so here, in the connection that is so crucial, is centered on, yes, of course, relieving temporary suffering, providing temporary benefit, but it's also there primarily to bring ultimate benefit and to eradicate ultimately the causes of suffering. And so it's not a case of dealing with somebody who is very poor by having a sense of compassion or wanting to kind of just relieve their immediate plight, but that's our motivation must also to bring about ultimate benefit to them, and so to kind of like bring about the action that is kind of induced from the powerful motivation, more extensive motivation to kind of really eradicate confusion, eradicate ignorance, and light the spark of wisdom, so that they can actually get rid of all their problems.
아니 되네 집어디에 안배 고시하다 어디 교부를 쓰듯이 거치면 배 군대잖아 군조를 치워 피고 요번에 시체는 배 고시하다 때문에 거네 응 진짜 안 다다 사세게 좀마다 마음을 치고 집어 집에 교를 좋아줘 삼사자 오다까지 지금 편배 삼는 거를 낸지 어디랬잖아
So it said that here the generosity is to be understood as has already been explained in the perfection of generosity. And so here, of course, therefore, it is motivated in order to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and that it is imbued with profound respect for the others. Not just you're giving to somebody out of pity because they're poor, but you've got this tremendous respect as if you're giving to a god. And this is the way the generosity is performed.
디 남주 다 데레지 직전도 소소 마기 바차 녀녀 바로 바체데 디 남주 야고미도 디미 야고미도사 아니 집바 땅와들 교바기에서부터 용해로 구도와 요구도 다디에서 거기 가서 국가 야고 총수 삼사잖아. 좋아 국가 야고 총수 삼삼잖아.
I think what's very, very important in these independent individual acts of generosity is to recognize what a precious opportunity this is for me, and to kind of really crank up the importance and the kind of like the preciousness of this opportunity for oneself. And so it's kind of really important to do that in the act and prior to the act of giving, because it's otherwise there's a danger that we may actually give in order to benefit, but we may be thrown by maybe an expression on the other's face that isn't what we expected or wanted or desired, and that this may bring about regret, some sense of regret for having given in the first place. And so we want to avoid that at all costs.
Thank you,
So no expectation of thank you or anything like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Malan, Magi Bachagua. The carters same thing till a social Ravatan in the medical Javana, and it can get your Ravach your bata. Tinnabu Yawata, Tingala Kabuchi, Tingal Casolete, Toji Lagri something, the nigger Ravach you, the Timatu, and can get it. Can get it. Then what's on? And Carabal never get it to kind of Chibata, who got to say Yabuchu something.
So we have to kind of really do this work beforehand to make sure that there's no expectation anywhere, even deep down in our hearts, for some sort of expression of gratitude from them, or a thank you, or anything like that. We should be very, very careful about that. That even if they harm me as a result of my generosity, that's fine. I just have I've had the great opportunity to be generous. That is virtue enough for me. That's wonderful. So that this is a great opportunity. All I have to do is engage in this act of generosity perfectly. That's it. I'll just leave it at that. Whatever happens afterwards, that's not my business. I've engaged in a good act of generosity.
And Jibatans the intimate true meeting go matter. So now lo mean a Sazani by Papa the Poo in Banya was Jibatans the Shabaja, so not Jima member to consist to Commission Maria. Randa greeted about Sula by in a dead Jibachati. That it was Kunoya was Chavina, Jibet Yugua. They get about.
And so also like it's kind of like important not just to consider that this kind of acts of generosity is some sort of kind of like a professional, external, outside business that I have to go out and search for people to be generous to, and that it's very formal like in that way. That actually no, it's like you can be generous to those who you're right next to always. Your partners, your children, your relatives, your friends, those who you're with on a constant basis. In fact, that should be the main kind of focus for your generosity. That to see each instance as a really precious opportunity at all times.
Because the Cotuina Kuga, teach about the Kanga Yomara, so that Yabuta Chibata Kanga Yomar. Kanga Medo Tati Kunoya Kavina. Tamuta Chibata Kanga Medo, or Yomonchola Totikua. Yes, Sandai, yeah, Puguis. No, they can't do shoot the Tangen. The ginger marking the same generation, and Darin Neg, and the Chicasore, Neg Tachi, because Sazai by Nata, Pui by the Pama in Telegi, and that leg on the Telegi, Javacha, Tangaloka, Yamu Shooter Asus, Chipataya. 고가야고 싶지라서 다디 디지바다는 마오바라 추가 지바당도 와쇼 마오바라 심지어 탐자가 되는 지바당도 와쇼 안 되겠잖아 디도스 레라도 와 되겠지만 얘네들 레라요다 디도 녀몽절 숙사요 디 숙초다 당네 숙초다 당네 다 지바 숙세 당도나 되기로.
So on the one hand, it may be that we sort of overlook those who are closest and nearest to us and most familiar to us as objects for our generosity, and we might take, because we take people for granted so easily. And but on the other hand, it can be very easy to kind of give and over the course of a day. Many different opportunities for acts of generosity towards those who are with us constantly, but because it is like that, it can be again taken for granted in another way, so that it's sort of like an act of generosity, but it's mixed with the mental affliction. So say, I'm giving to my partner, my children, and so on. So to formalize it in a way to make sure that it is, first of all, a massive, wonderful, perfect opportunity for generosity, and to frame it in that sense that it's I who am fortunate to be able to have this opportunity to give, and that this, in a way, thinking, motivating more sincerely and more deliberately like this, doesn't allow that element of mental affliction to infect your action. So it's important to kind of always frame the act of generosity with those who are close to you as an opportunity, because these are kind mother sentient beings, that through the process of karma, we have this particular relationship now. This has given me this great opportunity to be able to engage in generosity now. I motivate to give this material good or service and so on to the other. May it be expanded to be able to give to all sentient beings, and may indeed I be able to give the gift of Dharma to all sentient beings in the future.
같이 지금 먼저 단대데 뒤균도 소소가 비자 파마 좀 되들 뭐 뭐 지금 열 봐야. 뭐 지금 열때 지금 먼저 내가 봐도 지금 가서도 지금 태바 첨비 출로 좋다 써야 돼. 계속 보시래도. 뒤로 봐 제일 먼저 강내 시간도 왔다 보시나. 강내 시간도 가서 봐 제도도 와. 지당 말도 지금 가서 다 말아서 지금 미 검식 옮기러 와. 소소 비자 지지에서 로바 제일 강에 매 되겠지. 미 검식은 조정 당에서 랑 제들라 투되게 열에 다 도나 이나 다 가이는 편도도 가. 다 편도 요한테 되고 이나 다 지금 녀몽 추아도 숙청도 당해지. 근데 자체가 좋투예지. 아니 다 되네잖아. 아니 랑다 저 밤에 심제. 아니 다니 랑다 참부 매게. 저쪽에 아니 지금 믹스가 랑다 참부 시다면 그 제도 되는 편바 좋투예지. 계시 뭐래도 와.
So that isn't it really only common sense for us to really make more and make the most we can of the many different acts of generosity and all the different incidents of help that we give to our relatives, our friends, and those who are dear and near to us, as on a habitual basis from day to day. It's not difficult, it's not a hassle for us, is it? But to be kind of more focused on what is actually happening is going to really help to reduce the extent to which self-cherishing is also included in our motivation. And of course, even so, to be beneficial in that way is very good, but it does make sense, isn't it, to kind of purify as much as we can that afflicted element out of it, and to really expand as much as we can in our motivation the benefit that can be brought due to even one single act of generosity. So it's very, very important to be able to kind of take advantage. Again, it's the recognizing how what a great opportunity, and so on, and take advantage of the fact that we engage in many of these actions habitually on a daily basis anyway, because we want to. These are our loved ones, these are close to us. But even those who are neutral to us, who are those who we are unfriendly with, we can. It will do no harm at all, but to become more mindful, more aware, more formal in our interactions like that, so that we can also give with love, even to those who we are not friendly with, and so on.
다 랑게 강도 지바지. 아니 다가리 생게 지바지발에 제수이라지. 루아다 생게 지바지발에 제수이라지. 다가니 생야 신 지바 당에라 쪼아게 그냥 가서 소소 지가 쪼아게 그냥 지가 소라다 소소게 지가 가서도 자지 가서도 쪼아게 펴봐 두게들 요구로와 지바 당에라 지가 가서도 쪼아게 어떤데 펴봐 두게들 요구로 어떤데
And so we take joy out of our own acts of generosity, rejoice in your own virtue in that sense, and also rejoice in those others who are generous. And that, of course, that sense of delight is not only kind of self-perpetuating in terms of wanting to engage in that action again, but also it's extra benefit as well.
어떻게 안 라도도다 지가 지바지 제일 맞춰버리 차서나 아카서 교와 자원에 맞게 받지 안 교와께는 빼돌아치 버와 지바 땅와데 돌아치 버리 안 딜라 때는 네바 먹고 싸운 것도 뭐예요 안 딜레 오다 날 참부유 지바 땅에 고급 좀서 빼개와 상부에 다 된데 고급도 락하고 버렸다 이나야다 마음벌에 거지 고급 된데 라고 삼사치네 나 지바 땅에 고급 야부시 제수이라지 아, 다 내만 내 페버 쪽에 레마소 교박해서나 아니 동시로 라차서 소소라. 이 뭐예요, 봐. 이 개체보지래. 뭐좀 something 용그래.
And so here that we must be especially aware that because relations change as well, and so that you may have been generous to a particular person in the past. But when relations change, now you are unfriendly, and so you might develop a regret for having been generous in the past. And so that is a very insidious attitude to cultivate. And that's sort of because it's very wasteful. It kind of starts to really degenerate the virtue that you have accumulated. Plus, it leads to many faults. And so here, one should simply focus on the virtue of the generosity that one engaged in the past, and still rejoice in that. How wonderful that was to have that opportunity, and may I be able to have the opportunity again in the future to also be generous.
니버마와 그러다 같이 아니 지바치네 아니 내부차가지고 아니 들레지 가서래다 폐매 다 폐매게 아니 도다시지 저거 되자 공배배 세당 공배배 코도 공배배 되네 많이 받지 언제 가서 규디다 붙어버린다 딱고 그러다 규디다다 언제 가봐다 탑지 집에 터졌다 이내 카메라 들고 시작으로다 카메라 때렸다 간제 카메라 떼기 전에 아니 그 강투도가 편바 두겠지 어떻게 셋업 지야지 배를 차셔이나 창 가보지거나 창용도 줘야 타마 가보지나 타마용도 줘야 되자 첨보지나 되자 충도 줘야 타래 나가는 신의 집 가서다 가리 마이네 되 경계 차가리 요바 있네 되게 슈슈도 충도 땅답게 아니 슈도 충도 땅에 코유 주에 environment 주에 소에 나가는 신의 들라 편바 두게 아니 되네잖아 다 야전은 고제 타바다 탐지 집에 나와서 와. 나는 코알링에 줄게. 다 같이 코로나 강에도 그때 태워 있네. 아니 저기 동생 냠제지에 거기서 솔로테리티는 쓰기도 하다가 코로나 강에 여봤대. 아, 이제 소소의 냠도 가서다.
Ah, right. Empathize.
냠도 여봤다고 소리치. 어떻게 뒤에서 쌤이 보자. 아, 가서 남자 어디 충주를 개말해서 듣잖아. 딜로로 도모다 셔마 셔싱 말때 이나 뜻다 카면 두 번째 셔고르데 이나 그래서 이나야 다잖아 다 가서 교부전에 핑거 말에 아니 말아서 다 딜레테는 롭종 랭고레스 딜레테는 마음발 강에도 많이 탑시 찍으러서 아니 양거 지금 탑시만 보도해 드리는 거로 봐. 답이 왔다 간에 들으자 들라 세티를 개와 치마를 땡게 디지털에다 람대지 디야 코라게 컴다 좀 맞네 대지 요거로 와 어디서
So the second of the four ways of gathering disciples is referred to as pleasant speech. And again, this has to be really kind of like explained in more detail, because it's that which is any explanation of the meaning of the teachings that is going to be beneficial to the other. So any way of in diminishing pride or desire or anger in another, but at all times it must be according to the disposition of the listener. So what are they able to take, and what is appropriate to say to them, to explain to them. So one must have that sort of information, to kind of like deal with the problem at hand and to deal with it sensitively, so that they can eradicate their particular problems, whether it's alcohol or smoking or desire and so on, and to create kind of proper environment in which these explanations can be most effective. And so in other words, that ultimately create the grounds in which you can discuss, say, renunciation of cyclic existence and so on. But the most important thing is to begin with and continue in one's connection, in one's pleasant speech, with the most empathetic kind of a mind that one can generate. That's feeling of closeness with the other. That you're not simply kind of dismissing, when they come to you with their petty difficulties, what may be, but you don't dismiss them as that. Oh, that's nothing. Don't worry about that. Get over it, kind of thing. That's not the pleasant speech that is going to be of benefit. And so you really have to kind of really empathize, listen carefully to what they're saying, to try to help them not to be so sad in the short term, and to help them to think on about the future, open their minds to the bigger picture and so on, and to ultimately, of course, set them on the path to ultimate happiness.
지다 미가 강에도 수시하면 니에디 개쳐버리고 와. 디 니에바이나 파조 또 레라도 주고 와. 그러나 이지전라고 열와. 미지 강에 수체다 sem가 강에도 딱 강에 채위나 소소를 계좌질 라바이나 딱 강에 저 그러나 지 가서 소소 이지전라고 열와. 이지전라디 가서래. 직전에 초시야 여기 말이. 사무당당 마시네. 인그리데. 이나야 소소면은 그러나 이지전 소소직 선도 유버서 니에바이 파조도 이질리기도 와. 다 이질레바이나 아니 콜라 강에 스탑 게데 시아바이나 아니 거기 지금 가서 계좌들 다 보자기도 와. 지금 도스 펜발 주고도 아니 디모가 야 지금 소소기 지금 시 아니 파조도 문에 전에 배서 지금 가서도 동생 남자전 녀바이나 소소 강에 내시 녀바이나 파조도 또 슬로 되더라고도 와. 디켜봐 된데도 된데도 가시 시에서 매바지 이니 시에서 이체서 요 말에 아니 가 시에서 중앙에 디 많이 바이나 거 근데 강에 쳐들어오도 와. 니에디 개치 못했어. 아니 니에베 돈은 소소 삼모타는 같이 시나 콜펜도 차 용사래. 아니 그 내가 강에 셋업. 아니 때 학교도 이지게데 개치 못이 주래.
So in this context again, what's really crucial is the trust. That if another person comes to you with their problems and chooses you to explain their problems to, then there's already a sense of trust that they have, that you may be able to help them. So to honor that, you have to really listen very, very carefully to what they say, and to really try to empathize with them, to kind of really understand where they're coming from. Very, very important. Even if you don't have the answers, just that important element of trust, and to honor that trust, that they come to you and that you give of your best by listening carefully, by being able to hopefully find a solution to eradicate their difficulties, or at least you can even talk, from your own side, if you have experienced similarly yourself, so you have that in common. And so by your explaining your understanding of how you overcame this difficulty, they can bring some peace of mind to the other. And so it's very, very important that this sort of closeness of the relationship is really understood.
step by step share.
And so that's of course temporary benefit, to bring about a temporary relief, temporary benefit to the other, and then ultimate benefit, and to be able to then talk about the benefits of the path leading to liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. But everything in its time. Again, we must not overburden somebody who is not able to kind of like handle that, but when they're kind of like develop their personality disposition, that to be able to cope with that sort of information, then to be able to explain it. So everything in its proper stage. And so the third element of gathering disciples is called working at the aims. And this is really setting disciples to kind of work on the explanation you have given when you are using pleasant speech, and so explaining to them how to correctly take up the practice of what has been explained. And of course, you do this again in accordance with what each disciple is able to handle. They must be kind of like in harmony with their own capacities.
Mila Saba Sambo Chila, Rasaba Sambo Machina Chimba, Mila Saba Sambo Chila, and Rankantu Saba Sambo Chekuruaya. Was a Mila Tabata Tabiki, Lam to Buddhist Lame, Ra, and Sedike Chebuch and Devayina, and the Pandochi to Marwa. Jinza, and Raya, Data Tuba, and Casa de Tubasata, Pate, 20 Tuba, Sosu and Namsland, Getchuchadua. That gets you and Chishu, so to the Pebble.
And so that the fourth is the consistency of behavior, which really boils down to practicing what you preach. Here, that you must be able to, you must be seen to be able to embody what you're explaining, the path that you are explaining. So that if you are talking about the path leading to liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, you better be seen to be really making effort to progress along that path. It's not much good if you're explaining how to be kind-hearted to another and you're not kind-hearted yourself. That's not really going to work. And that again, if you're talking about renouncing cyclic existence and attaining liberation, but you're still seen to be holding this life to be so important, that's certainly going to put a kind of a crimp in your style, you're not going to be very effective in that sense.
야 미셔바가 라발랍 타야발 미셔바가 어다디 냠내 바레나 소소 냠내 마지 냠내 차요 말와 미셔바지 어디 배 냠내 바레라나 소소 냠내 지금 매바이나 배도보다 미셔바지 그 냠내 바 마레스 라바 임바이네 소소 냠내 지금 다 되고요 봐. 야 미라말라게 잡았다 소소 지에디.
So this is something that is kind of an internal assessment, and that you must be brutally honest with yourself with regard to that, because what you are is not determined by anybody else. So that if your people or disciples refer to you as a great practitioner, but you know yourself you're not, then that's useless. Or if they say you're no good a practitioner at all, but actually you know yourself that you're very sincere in your practice, and then that's what counts.
What gets you about me can love malati get you maris.
So it's not what other people say.
Yeah, they get you maris.
That's not important.
Then they go 2 a.m.
So many people get confused about that particular.
What they get you that so the children to my Shabana, so can't do get us Namne Chico, so Pambusan, Pambusan Castle, witness, Mishabakoma, witness, so gets about.
So you are your own best witness, that you are your explanation is in harmony with the path, and that your subsequent practice is in harmony with what you're explaining.
What gets about what the legend that can't do it, and can't do mill judgment, can't do no and judgment of society, check to much judgment more.
So do your very best to reduce any judgment of others, but to be most conscientious about judging whether your actions are in harmony with the Dharma.
No, what the is a Jimbache, Nyambarmawache, and the cause of Dönchovache, and Döntumas, what that 60 to 1. Shitua, what that did, and because of the Dakache, Shengu me but a Shengu me but cheek. Namne Chalatua, Pageant to the Dakache, Pageant to the Rangu me but cheek. The Rangu me that Rangu me but some I was Shengu me but cheek. What is it?
And so these 4 of generosity, pleasant speech, working at the aims, and the consistency of behavior constitute the 4 ways of gathering disciples in the context of ripening the mind streams of others, as opposed to that initial outline of the means by which we ripen our own mind stream, namely practice of the 6 perfections.
the Korgiawala Chavechido, Dua Nisa, Toma de Duala, Toma de Korange Chicasata, Nega Gangarina, the set up the Kako Gudua, Kakon Chicksem Sokudua, Kako Lacha. They are that the guy that they are something Chibachina, Lula Pentopala, Desos, that is something Chibachinata, Nega Geta, Ludel Pemba Tuila, Rally Grace, the sauce. The other. Deda Gana, Deda Javala, Deda Gana, Lamla Javala, Deda Genata, me the Sadia Guma to reach the Imbazita, Dati, and the Dijan and Koranchik Casore, Lamla Charne, Casa Lamla, Sadia Guma to what the Watam Jet, the Batumata Savala, Lamla Lapurua, they got Lamla Chawa, Javala, Toma de Chida Jatu, and Shape of Uesa, and the Debar, that Debatile, Corate, that because of. Debatilata, that Lamdu Church, Mario Church, Church, that church is a chicken day, get a man church, that Korani, Namuichi, Korakang set up chair, and no more shook on the toy. Give it your compared to toy, that type of Buyuguaya. Church.
So, and then the second of these outlines in direct relation to this, the four ways of gathering disciples in order to ripen the mind streams of others. The second of these, is why they are stipulated as four. So the question is asked, why four ways of accumulating or gathering disciples? And the answer is that initially, in order to connect followers with virtue, it's important at the outset that they are pleased to enter into what they are doing. And so here the practice of giving of material things, material goods, is in order to being kind of a physical benefit to them, to maybe provide them with needs, to eradicate temporary difficulties that they may have. And then thereafter, having been pleased in this way, and they are introduced onto the path. And so, because after all, the ultimate goal here is that they become Buddhas, to bring them to the state of enlightenment. And here, it's important, therefore, that they are connected to a path that will lead to that ultimate goal. And so this is where the second of the four ways of gathering, pleasant speech. And so one is using one's pleasant speech in order to explain the Dharma. And so here, in order to for them to be able to listen to that, they have to be kind of like amenable to listen to you, and that is accomplished through generosity at the outset. So they're listening to the explanation of the path in order to eradicate all of their problems and faults, and to accomplish all of their good qualities. And so this doesn't have to be a sort of a formal teaching, but in every sort of interaction that one has with another, even a casual conversation, talking about difficulties and so on, that was explained earlier. This is included in the context of pleasant speech.
What is the problem? That in the image, and it's Java Namju Java Star Megan Chicken, and Chicken Java Yova so the Getchable. That dealer to the Namju Java Yuting it. And Mutun Java Yabush, I should get you. That was in a Pangor, Namju Java Yabu Yugen, and Java Mabachana, that Pangor, that when the Java made it, Java so go you to Java Yova Jutune, Mutune, and Java Yabola Togo, which we get you. That would Java Megan, Java so and those Calais. Java Yuting the Mutune join Lelagua.
And so here, when we talk about connection again, it's not just a case of connecting with those with whom you don't have a connection, but it's also caring for those with whom you already have a good connection, and really kind of like tending to those connections. That's very, very important, and that it's quite difficult to create connections with those who you do not have connections, but it's much easier to maintain harmonious relations with those with whom you have a connection. So one should work at that as well.
점점 알아서다 레당보 레뉴가 시원체래 점점 나와 조마조 기대셔다 맞지 남주도다 맞죠 또 연구를 때 내가 무지는 많이 와잖아 아니 그 남자 고한다 내가 너무 시원진 장에 기대셔다다 지다도 누르 고한다 소리스 어디 lap톱 보고도 뒤에다 가서 지금 시대박 소리도 많이 봤잖아 시스템 딩네 근데 고한다 슬라브잖아 아니 거기 저 가서 되게 강에 내가 쏟아 아니 무지는 저와 약고서 되게 좀 버려도 그래서 뭐죠 체디게 전부 말해서 시에 되게 지루와 뭐 타바다 탐지 좀 게 전부 레스 시에 되게 지루와 다디 시에 되게인데 투바지 제국도 와
So again, too, it's in recognition that as beginners we are very much under the influence of karma and the mental afflictions, and so in interactions with others we may be operating on the basis or be infected with the mental afflictions and cause difficulties, cause breakdown in relationship. I think we should be very clear about recognizing this and taking the opportunity as quickly as we can to really apologize for anything untoward that occurred in conversations, and not to be like a politician's sorry, but something deep down, a very, very genuine, a genuine kind of apology with the understanding that shows that you do not take the affairs of this life to be so important, but you do put a great value on the attainment of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And so therefore this connection is very important. And so therefore to work hard creating new connections and to really care for and look after the connections one has.
다 최시에서도 지갈 대시에 기저마다 가리네 펴마 두개 줘라. 다 펴마 두개 치 어디지. 다 대시에바나 안 된죄베 개와 두발 안 대시에 안 된데 죄베 개와 두발라 안 주바체라서 개와 두발라 안 주바치에 주투바치에 다 대야 랑게 두바시 이나 다 랑게 두바시나 아 가사데 랑게 두바시나 다자 강라 주베 개와 데라 코라야다 랑게 두바시 이나 아니 소소 가바 죽사 개와텔라 아니 가서다 칸라 주베 개와텔라 코라야 네바치베서 다 데데가 소소 즉 페바투세 칸사디야 개와텔레신 네바치에 제베 데투나 데다 중요한양도 주바고자.
So again,
랑게 냠소 랑네 아니 딜라 오다 데스 냠소 랑고고도서 페바투베 쇼마다 디야 디도 투바죠. 다 랑게 냠소 랑에다 페바투베 랑게 페바 요바 시베 토네. 데스 투바이나 아니 페바 데스 랑게 시베 토네. 랑게 냠소 랑바데 셸레 칸토 투바죠. 페바투베 쇼라다 고서. 페바투바도 냠바마와다 마서 아니 딜람들 아니 주게라 아니 소소게 배춘 지에지.
And so then with regard to working at the aims, then we take that explanation from pleasant speech and to really put that into practice, to kind of like connect those disciples with the practice of fulfilling the virtues inherent in that explanation. This is working at the aims, and then your own consistency of behavior is to have established a practice that you know is beneficial for yourself, and you're very clear on that, and to be able to share that with disciples who are, according to their individual dispositions, of course, and in harmony with what they're able to do, and that they are receptive to that, and to kind of be kind of like an example of what you're explaining and what you're promoting, and so that they are inspired to emulate what you do.
다 수반도 가서 두시 제레네서 다 두시 제레네 집에네 최니베 노트로 왔지. 다 집에 당할 때는 최루에 네다 소소 편바 주사기 노트로 왔지 제투에. 서 nie면서 nie발마에서 된제 최들라 몇바지야. 다 nie발마에 된제 최들라 아니 몇바게 두야. 그러다 딜레 페버도 좀 생각 토네 다 장제데 디니바 예토바 소이죠로다. 그래서 몇바지. 된죄변에서 때바시 두바지야. 다 된죄변에 소소 때만에서 아니 디 두바지야. 된투반에 주바데 미도바 유리도로 다 주바지야. 아니 저 뒤지 가서는 매바 찾아야 말에 좀 무투는 제도에서 다 랑게 제바이나 이 빼고 또 두고 와.
The third outline describes the function of each of the four ways. Generosity is explained as that which creates or renders the disciple a suitable receptacle for listening to the Dharma. And the second pleasant speech is creating the aspiration to really engage in the Dharma that is explained, the teaching that is explained. And again, I'm saying this, what must be emphasized here is that that explanation is given based on reasoning, and that it's backed up by valid reasoning is very important. And the third of the four ways is to kind of like work on the means or the meanings. And so here it's kind of engaging in the practice in accordance with the teaching. So it's kind of really fulfilling the aspiration of the second. And then working in kind of like consistency of our behavior is to be able to establish others in a practice that they continue with for a long time and do not sort of reject it after a short time, but are happy to do that because they see what a great, valid, shining example you are of what you are promoting and what you are explaining.
아니 지금 멜라기 야슈네 말발라 아니 얘기다 칼라다 대사다 안 최다 그거 기라는 거다 뒤담가 네가 좀 말했어 야나 칼라다 대사 제가 있나 최디 셔바다 줬어 그봐 최디 야나 칼라다 대제는 안 최디 셔바다 줘 야마나 야 최고고 요나 안 칼라다 대사 셔바다 줘 최디 내전에 대제서 네가 요구 말했어 담가 쳤어 봐 이제 지금 나말 숨에서 와 담가 야 강사 가서 가사 고생 언제 가사 가시려냐 대대게 탑게 토네 이노 촐랍죠 달라마도 로마니가 그 믹스게 렌제 켜봐가지고 와 맞다 때마 지에 조단지나 것도 다다대시 켜봐 또 요거 되게 좋아
So again, one must understand that the practice of the six perfections, as explained in the context of ripening one's own mind stream, and the explanation of the four ways of gathering disciples in the context of ripening the minds of others, is a general presentation, because when it comes down to it's a general presentation, because when it comes down to it, the peculiarities of each guru-disciple relationship have to be taken into consideration, and they are very, very important as well. How that connection is, how that connection manifests. So this is kind of thinking as a general framework, but then within that you can see that it can manifest quite differently, and no more obviously than the relationship between Marpa and Milarepa. And so when you saw that incredible connection that they have, but the peculiarities of how it played out are very interesting. The incredible merit that had to be accumulated on the part of Milarepa and so on, the purification, building of the towers and so on. And then he's kind of request to Marpa that please give me some food, accommodation and teachings for this. And Marpa's reply was, well, you can have one but not the other. You you can have food and accommodation, but you have to go elsewhere for the teachings. Or you can have the teachings, but you have to go elsewhere for the food and accommodation. So these peculiarities have to be taken into consideration.
말바게 되죠. 마케바 말와. 말바게 킹고요. 이나야 로마 딘데지라 조탄 딘데치고요.
So of course, Marpa is acting from the point of view of really understanding and knowing what exactly was necessary. So he's speaking, precisely to the mind stream of Milarepa, because he knows what's needed for Milarepa.
안데 뭐가 최슈 갈래어도 날 뷰가 가리요 쓴거요 봐. 오프닝 가리요 쓴거. 나는 지들한테 관도 다 오프닝 거고 얘네 이래 송대도 요마로 봐.
And like that incident when he finally agrees to give Milarepa teaching, and Milarepa comes and he says, before he can do anything, Marpa says, "Okay, where's my offering?" So you can say yes. Like in general, we'd say an offering is a good idea from the point of view of the disciple, but it's not something that the Lama should rely on. So these are very very important very exceptions to the rule. But that the offering wasn't important, simply in a kind of elliptical way of really emphasizing how important how sacred, precious this Dharma was.
최대 자체뭐 다 최대 자체뭐 시우서는 지금 대야 최대 레라고 마테마 제베 아니 지금 제주 멜라던데 최제 교가 숙체도 체도 좋네 다 레라고 저라도 레라고라 지금.
So most of that, the preliminaries in a way to Milarepa getting any teaching from Marpa was Marpa's expert and skillful means in establishing the absolute preciousness and importance of what the Dharma meant in Milarepa's mind. So he, if he had given him the Dharma freely at the beginning, then Milarepa wouldn't have considered it to be that important. But by holding back and making him really work for it, that desire for Dharma built up in Milarepa, and he could also see this must be really amazingly precious and crucial to get. So by the time he did get it, he was ready to dedicate everything to accomplishing it.
그 레라보 저 라바이나 아니 남한테 시작하고 말이죠. 하고 저 락하고 아니 락하고 쉬우셔도 아니 소소 두바슉 쉬우래 아니 뒤지 락 사도 때는 냠냠을 비다고 제중 것도 냠을 비다고다 그 지금 라마도 로마 민다와 답에 개발 파와 지금 도탄 도스로가 용것도 도탄 도스로가 용것도.
And so that in this particular case, that in the guru-disciple relationship, we could see that if the Dharma was given easily, without any effort on the disciple's part, then it would not be respected as well as enough. But because it was so difficult to get, and the meaning then was really appreciated, and then the practice became really quality practice.
말바기 멜라라 이래서 오프닝 가리요 대소는 저 근데 지게 가리 뭐나 다 선이 뉴스페이퍼나 되어 들어와 다 지게라 된다지 단대 두줄라 된다 셔봐이나 선이 착반나 되어 그러와.
So again, I was reflecting that particular incident when Marpa was asking Milarepa for an offering prior to giving a teaching. If that happened today, it would be reported in the newspaper the next day. Bad publicity.
치료 마통 맞잖아. 저 딩내도 자와 시우치. 사제다 저서면은 쉬어라서 말해서 편적으로 제기도 와. 아니 다 이담다 추송들은 뭐 예보 티슈스. tissues quite done. Just about to low which do. Ding but so shoes do.
And so that you know, of course, the in a kind of that sense, all the cards were in Marpa's hand in that relationship, and especially at the outset. And but Marpa was doing what he was doing out of amazing love for Milarepa. That's obvious, because remember at one stage when Milarepa had become that frustrated that he actually left and went to seek teachings elsewhere, and it was that point that Milarepa doing his own requesting of his own meditation. Marpa was doing requesting his own meditational deities to bring my disciple back, hook my disciple back, get him back here. Shiva the Korjuva.
Shiva also Kortube della Denkovanesa, Kortube della Denkovane, Tuja Kunje, Denkun Tubata, Top Sambu, Top Sambo, Sanjana, Sumbena, and Kortuba Namji, Teta Denko Sosa, the Sanjay Sonoras, what is a Kortuba, Kortun, Pembatukula, and that is Chekures, Tabuchibe, Tutukures. 이거도 지난 말아서 제가 교부제 강에 체대도 야 미지로 받잖아 아니 미들랑 신경 써봐 랑예부 차주에 간 지튕게 맞아 지금 받을 제소나 편바 주소나 아니 미들랑 셈예부 차도 용구도
And we can see again the fourth of the outlines is the need for those who gather a following to rely on these four. And here it's explained that in order really to bring about every kind of the best means of really establishing all the meaning for all disciples are these four, and it's necessary to rely on these four ways of accumulating gathering disciples. And this is according to all the Buddhas, what all the Buddhas have stated. And again, they're saying yes, it makes common sense as well that those who are poor or bereft of something or have problems, and that if you have an opportunity to be of help in any way, that automatically, naturally brings about a lovely connection, doesn't it? A closeness between you.
That 중세 개월 시험에서 냐말라 니스 냐바마와라 니스 지대가 추다데 냐바마와다 아니 냐바마와 니스다 지대가 추다데 맞아 하와리 유다 지대가 아티사 감티와라 소베 지대가 수제 셈제나라 가와체와 오사 양다베에서 최대바다 데베 냐마니스 데바다 추진다 퇴바다 동와다 시라다 개와라 소베에서 잠내 페바다 데베치도 셈제를 최대바 오체오체체.
Then the fifth and final of the outlines related to this one is a slightly more extensive explanation. And for example, when looking at pleasant speech, it said there are two categories of pleasant speech. The first is associated like with worldly customs. It's kind of like, when we're good manners and we're inquiring after another person's health and so on. And the kind of normal everyday speech that we might engage in that pleases another. So that's the first. That the second category is the actual explanation of the pure Dharma, correct Dharma. And so this is all inclusive of the whereby sentient beings may be able to generate faith and ethics, to be learning, develop their learning, their generosity, and their wisdom, etc. And really, any speech that's going to bring about happiness and benefit to others.
How are you?
So I like this custom in the West of people asking, "How are you?" when you meet, and so on. But it's often just paying lip service, really, isn't it? It's not deep down, because people often don't even listen to, don't get a reply or don't listen to a reply.
How are you?
How are you? And then they go. So maybe they're a little bit apprehensive that if they get an honest answer, that they'll be talking about problems, or they need something from me or something like that. So they make a quick getaway instead. So true.
다 지난 것도 직전 몇 년발 모았으나 아니 지 계좌 밑에 감다 tumba 아니 계좌 저 90대 때 배터네 다 시에 년발 모았어 그러와 다 초전에 년발 모았어도 들라 지다음에 지금 자도 저배 저 년부시에 인가다 이내 계치슈 들라 편바주에 지 고고지래 편바주에지 편바 용하시 편바주에지
So that so in brief, the first category of pleasant speech, the kind of worldly pleasant speech, is as it is there. It's kind of like fulfilling the kind of worldly, mannerly customs, really. That when one is showing respect and warmth towards others, and his speech that fulfills that. And then the second category of the pleasant speech in connection or in conjunction with Dharma. So it's here. It's again, yes, it's an explanation of the Dharma, but it can be kind of subsumed into anything that brings benefit to another.
rangi tonda tuye chudani keje ningje ushewa ina nyamba maaja ingu mare pajo dala ya maungbala nyue chido gogodani keje nyambu shege jorwa di nyambara maa chege mudu gogodan kol nyugu yorwa di neshi chewa ina nyugu yorwa inza ko nyambara maa ko ting ningje usila riya goya rimduwa koral pema tuye pema chayechi.
So this is, of course, to distinguish it from, when we are just out to fulfill our own needs in any shape or form, that the speech we use may be very beautiful and even pleasant, but it's in order to deceive another into getting something for ourselves, and that doesn't count as pleasant speech here.
마민바 미바체바 민바나 조아체바다 규마 민바데 규미바치에 규미바데 아니 저 람타친의 조아치에 what 고고다.
The third of them, working at the aims, is fulfills the purpose of ripening kind of the minds that aren't ripened, and then further bringing to kind of liberation those minds that are already ripened.
파르보 간라고 바다 베나 그 가서 규마 미바 조아체바 데 간라고 고바 데라 데다 숨바라 아니 숨바함 안 데라 하고 란냐바체바 와서 란야티나시 네바치에죠.
So that in regarding the consistency of behavior, the fourth, here is that whatever one is leading others to do, one should be abiding in that practice in an equal sense, or even in a superior way, oneself. So as well.
다 도와시 양사 사생게 도와다 추게 도와 니스도 되그래서 로다 집바데라서 거라 다 사생게 집바네 담보이라 아마 숨내서 추게 집바도 다 되게 담보디 다 사생게 집바체 다 아마 숨데 아니 추게 집바 거라 다 되게 집바체나 집발라 사생게 집바 추게 집바 이용 되거라 추게 집바 이용 되거라 다 되네 도해보고 신는 다 가서 담보디 사생게 집바체 아니 타마 숨데 아니 추게 집바 공스도도 하고 되죠.
And also in the context of the first of the four ways is generosity, as we explained, and that within that there are two Yeah, the kind of two ways of gathering, and so it's explained as the gathering through material needs and gathering through dharma. And so the first, of course, generosity is explained as the first, the gathering through material needs, and the following three, pleasant speech, working at the aims, and the consistency of behavior, are all included as the gathering in the context of the dharma.
집에다 사세가 집에다 출이 집에다 사세가 집에나라 되고부시 담보티 집에집에서게 담보지 다 담았음데 가서데 저기 집에나 도체다 집에나 뒤쪽도 어디서고요 다 되네 자주 라브리 집에 사제가 토네 기부 집에가 좀 명하지 내 뒤봤다 남선남다가 명하게 내 뒤봤어 세베 주면데 면센다 면센 자와다 저바지란다 저바나
So this completes the explanation of the stages of training in general for kind of like in terms of the aspirational mind of enlightenment and the subsequent actions or activities, behaviors, and acts as the kind of like clear path of instruction of all the essentials or main points of the path related to the three capacities of being, based on the outlines of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So then that completes that section, that large section of the text, and immediately following next week, or in 2 weeks actually, we will begin on the trainings of the in particular the trainings on the final two perfections.
다 가이나면은 뒤균데 가서라다 지금 람림 차장 말로 하지는 냠을 제대로 커버리다 하고 봐서도 로에다 이내다 지금 연대 시주마서로지 연대 시주마티마 연대 시주메다는 아니 람림 차장 직지나 수요 그래 아니 진짜 투바제 샤콤서를 뒤도 또 제도나 또 제도나 약고 열었어.
So to have this sort of like a access to the graduated path in this way continuously, I think is a very, very important aspect of our practice. And so whereas it's very difficult to read it in the kind of detail that we have gone through so far, but I recommend doing the kind of a combined placement meditation on the prayer known as the foundation of good qualities. And to recite that on a daily basis, because all the essential outlines of the graduated path are included in that. So yes, to do a glance, a glance meditation on that prayer. If one have time, of course, one can pause and on each verse and go through the outlines in more detail. For example, to look at the ways in which one relates to the spiritual teacher. How to relate correctly to the spiritual teacher, the benefits of doing that correctly, the faults of not doing that correctly, and the disadvantages of not relating on a spiritual teacher, and then also move on to the details around the precious human rebirth outlines of the leisures and the endowments, the details and outlines of death and impermanence and so on. and to go through it in whatever detail one has, according to the time one has at one's disposal. Otherwise, to just do the glance meditation every day would be very helpful.
아니 지금 저거 잠도 sem제지 아니 람림 때그 지금 샤금 소리지 아니 내가 소소 지금 다 나가 엉슈게 잡거든요 튼돌라면 내줘다 아니 다가는 생각 지금야 이담하게 들이 다기 잡거든요 여봐이나 되게 람림티 검도 사차네 안 되게 제가 야구 요랬어 그거 두모람 장소로 시고도 좋네 야구 요봐
So
가서는 되게 가서도 다 뭐지 상하고 똑같이 되게 발래
So again, in one's practice, to begin with the refuge and generation of bodhicitta, and then to insert this glance meditation or more detailed meditation using the foundation of good qualities would be very good. And then to follow that with whatever, if one has taken tantric empowerment, to do one's guru succession and the generation of oneself as the deity, and do the particular sadhana that one relative to the empowerment one has is very, very good to do at that stage. It's very good to precede one's tantric commitment with the path that is in common, and that is the graduated path, and to kind of like really it kind of forms a very good foundation for one's subsequent tantric practice. So I'm apologizing ahead of time really for the kind of break in the teachings. There won't be a teaching on next Sunday because I've been invited up to give a talk at the Dalesford Dharma School, and I really feel I should sort of honor that kind of commitment I have there as well. I know that I feel a little bit how would you say uncomfortable about denying you guys who kind of take so much time and effort to get here every Sunday, and I apologize that you will miss out just for next Sunday. But I feel also the kind of like necessity of honoring the commitment to the school, because they've gone a long way, and they've it's been a while since I've been up there and had some time with them. So maybe on Sunday next you can meditate maybe more extensively on the graduated path as we just explained. That would be very, very good. So we do our Lam Rim prayer. From my two collections, vastly spaced, I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time. May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives meant history. May I find the best of complete greater paths of the teachings. May I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings. With points of path I have discerned, may I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal the treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted boundless peace, and may the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. May even this greater path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may your seeds of prosperity spread everywhere. You are of
we can describe a great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence, and magician master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Sankapa, crown jewel of the sages' land of snows, or Sankapa, at your feet I make requests.